Hi, I'm Carol Dow-Richards with the Aphasia Recovery Connection. I am really excited to offer you something today. One of my own son's speech pathologists was Dr. Jackie Hinckley, and she's going to be talking to us today about how do you find a good therapist. Dr. Hinckley is currently an associate professor at Nova Southeastern University, and a lot of us know her too from Voices of Hope and Project Bridge. She's really quite well known in the aphasia world, so we're really, really fortunate to have you here, Dr. Hinckley. So how do people find a good therapist?
Well, thank you for letting me be here, Carol, with you. I'm so happy to be here and to address this question. It's not easy to find a good therapist and one that fits you and works well with you. So here are 5 questions that you can ask your therapist, and it's okay to ask in advance before you start with somebody that might help you find the best fit for you. The first question is, how long have you been a speech therapist? Maybe a younger therapist might have some newer ideas, or maybe you would prefer someone with more experience, but it's okay to ask that question.
I know with David, I think you met David maybe 3 or 4 years post-stroke, and over a period of time, David had a lot of therapists. And I would agree with this. How long and the experience, I think, really matters. But he did also have some that were younger who did things like bring candy, which actually sometimes that was more motivating. So I think the fit really matters. Experience matters, and the enthusiasm that you feel when you walk into that room. And it's also okay, I would say here too, it's also okay if you don't feel it's a good fit. It's okay to switch it up. So how long have you been a speech therapist? That's a great question.
It's definitely okay to switch it up if you feel that it's not a good fit. The next question is, how often do you work with people with aphasia? There are many speech pathologists, some of whom even work in hospitals, that actually don't see that many people with aphasia. So it's important to ask and make sure that that therapist has plenty of aphasia experience.
And that is really important. I want to just share a personal experience. David had been having speech therapy for quite a while before we met Dr. Hinckley. And one of the things that was so insightful, and I think this came from the experience and how often she was working with people with aphasia, because at the time you were the director of an intensive aphasia program. So that's really all you were doing, all aphasia all day long. And I remember watching the interaction between you and David. And up to that point, we're talking 3 or 4 years post-stroke. Up to that point, David and I had still been playing a lot of charades and whatnot. But with a really good, experienced therapist, you were really able to help expose his competence. And I just watched in amazement as it's like they're actually sort of like regular talking, because you had the skill set. And that doesn't come quickly to people. It comes with a lot of experience. So I think this is a great question. How often do you work with people with aphasia?
That's great. The third question is, how do you select therapy goals? What you're probably looking for here is a therapist who really seeks out and spends time getting your input on what is important to you. Therapy should be personalized to you and your interests. So make sure that you find somebody who will do that.
So how much do you think that really matters, having it based on the person with aphasia and their goals versus somebody, maybe a therapist that has their own protocol, and this is what I do, this is my protocol that I do with people with aphasia? How important is it really?
There's actually a lot of scientific evidence that shows that when people collaborate with the therapist on what the goals are, the person with aphasia will make significantly more improvement in that therapy. And it's probably because the therapy is personally meaningful. So it's very important.
I agree. I agree. That is really, really important. So what's the next question?
The fourth question is, how do you, the therapist, how do you select the type of therapy? And you want to make sure that you have a therapist who not only knows how to match the therapy to your interests and your goals, but can also explain it to you.
Mm-hmm. I know for David, that really made a really big difference. And somebody that was explaining things to David and to I, and really understanding what was happening. And it also helped us do things so that therapy wasn't just in the therapy walls. Therapy was therapeutic in our home. And I think when the family is a part of it, I think that that's really, really helpful.
It's very helpful and so important. The last question is, you should ask the therapist, do you think people with aphasia can keep getting better over time, over a long period of time? The science tells us that people keep improving as long as there aren't other health conditions and they keep being active. And you want to work with somebody who understands that.
So I think that goes back to that famous plateau question. You really want a therapist who believes in you, is willing to keep working with you. As long as you're still motivated, you want a therapist to be motivated with you. So, it's true, sometimes we all need a break, and sometimes it's okay to take a short break, but I think you really, really want to keep pushing it, both in the clinical setting and remember, keep pushing yourself even in that therapeutic area that you live in called home, because it
Absolutely.
can be very therapeutic.
Absolutely.
So let's review, because I think this has really been great. And for those of you who are already thinking, these are great questions, but I didn't write them down, here's your chance. We're going to go over them one at a time, and you could even take a screenshot with your camera. So the first question was, how long have you been a speech language pathologist? The second question was, how often do you work with people with aphasia? Next, how do you select therapy goals? Next, the fourth was, how do you select therapy types? And the last question was, do you think people with aphasia can keep getting better over time? And if they say it's limited, I would run and find somebody else, because you want somebody that really believes in your long-term process and your progress. So this has really been enlightening. Dr. Hinckley, thank you so much. Any last words of advice for our listening audience on recovery in general?
I just want to say that you and the therapist have to make a team, and wherever you are in the process, maybe you have limited insurance or limited resources of any kind to spend on therapy, make sure that you're using those resources with a therapist who can do the best for you. And so don't be shy if you think that you're not working well with that therapist. Remember, this is you. This is your life and your speech. So be a good consumer of those services. And thank you so much for having me, Carol.
Well, we will have you again. I have so enjoyed our chat, and I think we met almost 20 years ago. So it's really great to see you again, Jackie. But more importantly, it's really great to be offering some of this really important, critical advice to families that are really questioning, like, how do I figure this out and what's important? So we've just given you 5 questions. So you can take a screenshot if you want to remember this, or you can certainly rewind the video and watch it again. So get ready to start asking some questions. Bye now.
Bye.